Chapter 8. The Queen's Croquet. There was a big rose tree near the entrance of the garden. The roses on it were white, but the three gardeners tried to paint them red. The gardeners looked like cards, flat and long. Alice found it quite interesting. That's why she went closer to watch them. They talked to each other loudly. "Be careful! 5, don't splash paint over me like that!" cried 2. "It's not my fault. 7 pushed my elbow," said 5. "Very kind of you to say so, 5. I heard the Queen wanted to cut off your head yesterday because you brought the cooked tulip roots instead of onions," said 7. Suddenly, 7 saw Alice and stopped talking. The others looked at Alice too. "Why do you paint those roses?" asked Alice. "The thing is that there must be a red rose tree, and we put in a white rose tree by mistake. If the Queen finds it out, she will cut off our heads at once. So you see, miss, we must try to paint them red before she arrives," began 2. At that moment, 5 looked across the garden and cried, "The Queen! The Queen!" The 3 gardeners stood still with fear. Then they lay on the ground. Alice looked around to see the Queen. First came 10 soldiers. They looked like the 3 gardeners. After them came 10 royal children. They jumped joyfully along hand in hand, and then came the guests. Among them Alice saw the White Rabbit. He talked quickly to Queen's guests. Next came the Knave of Hearts. He carried the king's crown on a red cushion. And last of all came the King and the Queen of Hearts. Soon they all came closer to Alice and looked at her attentively. Alice was not afraid of them, as they were only a pack of cards to her. "Who are you? What's your name, child?" asked the Queen. "My name is Alice," answered Alice. "And who are you? Who are they?" asked the Queen, and looked at the 3 gardeners on the ground. I don't know," answered Alice. "Turn them over!" cried the Queen. The knave turned the 3 gardeners over at once. Then the gardeners stood up and bowed to the King and the Queen. The Queen looked quite angry. "Cut off their heads!" cried the Queen. As the Queen said this, they all started to walk again. Alice decided to join them. The 3 soldiers stood behind to cut off the gardener's head, but they didn't really do it. Instead, they went away after the others. "Did you cut off their heads?" asked the Queen. "Yes, your Majesty," answered the 3 soldiers. And so the whole company continued to walk. Suddenly the Queen turned to the soldiers. "Get ready for croquet!" cried the Queen. They all started to run off in all directions. The croquet ground was ready in a few minutes. And so the game began. Alice never saw such a strange croquet ground in her life. The balls were hedgehogs, the mallets were live flamingos, and the soldiers had to stand on their hands and feet to make the arcs. First, Alice couldn't hold her flamingo. Then she put it under her arm and straightened out its neck quite nicely. She was ready to hit her hedgehog now, but her hedgehog looked at her sadly and ran away. And besides all that, the card arcs moved around too much, and that's why it was a difficult game. The players screamed and ran after the hedgehogs without stopping. The Queen cried, "Cut off his head!" every minute. Soon Alice began to feel very bored. Suddenly she saw something strange in the air. She watched it for a while. Then she understood that it was a acacia cat, but only its head was visible in the air. "How are you?" asked the acacia cat. "They don't play fairly at all. And they all scream so loudly. They don't have any rules, you know. Besides, my hedgehog ran away and I can't play croquet now, said Alice.
Do you like the queen? Asked the Acacia cat.
No, she is so...
began Alice.
At that moment, Alice saw the queen behind her.
She smiled at Alice grimly.
Who are you talking to? Asked the queen. It is my friend, Acacia cat, answered Alice.
It can kiss my hand if it likes, said the queen.
I won't kiss your hand, said the Acacia cat.
Then cut off his head, cried the queen.
At that moment, the others came up to the Acacia cat. The king and the queen talked at the same time, and all the rest were quite silent. Alice couldn't understand their words. After some time, she understood. They couldn't cut off the Acacia cat's head because there was nobody. At that moment, Alice turned to the queen.
This cat belongs to the Duchess, said Alice.
She is in a prison now.
Bring her here, said the queen.
As the queen said this, the Acacia cat disappeared. The soldiers looked for it everywhere, but they couldn't find it. The others started to play the croquet game.